All right, we're live. Welcome to the Wednesday afternoon training with Brandon. If you've been here every other Wednesday, this is primarily for the agents of our group. However, everybody can get something from this because we're talking about investors in general, whether it's an agent working with them or it's an investor working with an agent, or it's just investors looking to analyze properties better, or whatever it might be. Like, this is real estate agent and agent investor training that we have every single week. So welcome FlipTrader group to another, it's a double header on Wednesdays.
And that's cool, man.
Yeah, I think it's great, dude. We're getting a lot of traction. We're getting a lot of people reaching out. I'm super excited for how this thing's building. I mean, we're only in our third week. Like, we're halfway through our third week and we're already, it's completely different environment and culture than it was ever before. And although we are bringing in like, a couple hundred members a week, I think I have a net negative because I'm also removing members at a lot higher level who just don't fit our culture anymore, who aren't following the rules. So just
you sound like a real estate brokerage. You got agents that are getting out of the business and you're recruiting new ones in.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's attrition that I have to figure out our attrition rate.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Ian, you know what, I should mention that I probably graduated high school in 1987, but one of my first business classes at Arizona State University, I'll never forget, and it's stuck with me ever since. That professor, the business professor, he said he loved recessions because it cleaned out the bad business people.
I mean, that's pretty easy to agree with.
Yeah, right.
We certainly don't want people to like go out of business. We don't want people to be hurt, or we're not saying that. We're just saying for people that aren't serious about their business.
Yeah.
And this is really aimed at real estate agents. If you're not serious about your business, if you're not building something of substance and offering real, true value to your clients or to the market, if you don't have really great systems and processes that you're working every day to build, and you don't have the right kind of leverage,
right,
it's not going to work.
Yeah,
just not.
I agree.
And we were talking about this before. So really quick, before we get into 1031 stuff and all, the exchanges, which I think is a very important topic that not a lot of people know the depth of, which we'll get into. We were talking about the new ruling that came out yesterday, right? Missouri court, $1.7 billion, class action lawsuit. And it's a big topic. However, Brandon, just break it down real quick. So if you're an agent and you just so happen to not know this, pay attention, because you're going to need to know what's happening, because the industry, this could be the biggest change in the industry since the MLS went digital, and it might be even bigger than that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think just so everyone, if you're not aware, there are several lawsuits, and the big one that happened yesterday was the one of three lawsuits that has been going on, where this is the only one that went to trial. So keep that in mind. And it's an antitrust lawsuit, which means there had to be proof that the big brokerages, as an example, were conspiring in this scenario to fix what a seller had to pay in order to get their house sold using a real estate professional. Right. So what's interesting is the jury, and we still don't know exactly how the demographics of the jury was laid out, but basically they only deliberated for 2.5 hours and came to the conclusion there was enough evidence of collusion that they awarded $1.7 billion, more money than we have. And then, when you couple that with punitive damages, it's like $5 billion and some change. So
yeah,
the question is, they're going to be an appeal. I think NAR already kind of came out and said that they're going to appeal. And I didn't know this until a few weeks ago, Ian, that in order to appeal a federal judgment or a federal court hearing, you actually have to have the funds available to post a bond to appeal the amount. So there has to be at least $1.7 billion available to post a bond just to appeal it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so if anybody has,
something you and I talked about at dinner was, or maybe it was before that, was the fallout from this, and that's a big number. Even if it were 1.7 million, it's still a pretty decent number. 1.7 billion.
Yeah.
Now you've got the ambulance chaser type attorney that goes after the drug company that has like an issue, or the car manufacturer that has a defect or whatever. Right. We have to assume that opportunists, more power to them, are going to start figuring out how they can get money off of this thing. So what do they do? Do they go to sellers and say, hey, you were duped, or your agent lied to you and you might be due money? Are we going to see commercials at 1 a.m. or Instagram ads say, were you a home seller between 2002 and 2022, and you could be, if you paid your agent's commission, you could be refunded or something? I mean, somebody's going to do that. Do they get to come after the agent? And I know you're not like a total expert on this, but I know you and I have been talking about it a lot. Like, do you think they can come after the agent?
Well, I think you typically want to go after people with money, right?
Yeah.
And of the parties involved, the agents and the brokerages themselves are the ones that carry the E&O insurance, right? But I think it doesn't really matter on the E&O insurance side, because I don't know that E&O insurance would cover this. It's could be construed as fraud or antitrust, and I don't know that you're covered in those situations. I think the precedence was set with Remax as an example because they settled. So to your point about the ambulance chasers, yeah, I mean, maybe they approach other brokerages and say, hey, do you want to go to trial or do you want to settle?
Right.
So I think it's going to be interesting, to your point. The same attorney who just won yesterday also filed another lawsuit naming Compass and EXP and all the
rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm sure there's going to be some domino effects. I just don't know how you can 100% prove without a shadow of a doubt that people conspired. That's what I really found interesting, that the jury only deliberated for 2.5 hours. And, and I've heard a lot of other highly respectable people talk about this recently. And I don't know how the seller was really harmed to begin with, because it's not like they didn't sign the settlement sheet. It's not like it wasn't disclosed where the money was going from the settlement sheet. So I do find those things interesting.
I feel like, yes, when you take your real estate courses and they're teaching you about collusion and things like that, and they say, I forget the definition or the keyword, but like 3 brokerages can't get together and say, hey, we're going to make it this, X price or X this, or our commissions will be this, and anybody else, has to go away. But like it's certainly, as real estate agents, we weren't going into a seller thinking we're duping someone. It was just the common practice that there was no difference. It was the seller pays the commission and the buyer, you pay the co-broker commission to the buyer agent. And those are conversations that we had at the listing table when you're listing a house. Is like, hey, so our marketing fee or whatever people call it is 6% or 5%, and we'll go ahead and sign this line right here, because that's in our especially an MAR contract, the Maryland contract. I know it's in the California contract too. Like, you're telling the seller exactly from that 6% they're paying or 5% how much is going to go to the other broker. So there really isn't like a nobody was defrauded. But I think the biggest thing is, and I think a lot of people are going to be pissed off at me for saying this, but does a buyer's agent really deserve 2.5 to 3%?
Yeah, I think that's part of the conversation, right? As a listing agent, if I have to do your job, I don't know why you're entitled to the fee, right?
Right.
And I get that part of it too, but I also know that if I represent you as a buyer, I work my butt off too.
Sure. Yeah, you do though.
No, all right. And I think that's part of the argument in this class action suit was I think there are homeowners who genuinely feel taken advantage of, especially in a really good market.
Yeah.
Where all you had to do was put it in the MLS and you had 10
Right.
offers. So how,
Right.
but again, there's just so many things that I feel aren't talked about, like risk and liability.
Yeah.
So if you were to say, hey, Brandon, I want you to cut your fee, what's the lowest you would go? I would say, well, first of all, my deductible is $10,000 on every transaction. So that's step one,
Right.
right? Step two, how long is it going to take us to get through the marketing of a property? Because I have upfront expenses.
Yep.
That's what I feel like no one talks about. So even
Yeah.
if you represent the buyer and you have a motivated buyer and a motivated seller, the question is really, how many hours do you spend
Yeah.
helping someone? Your availability, drive time, your mileage, your gas, all the things that are important. It inspired us, Tammy and I. We did a kind of a self study
Yeah.
because I don't think this is talked about, and that is, what do we as listing agents genuinely put in?
Yeah.
So we figured, on average, by the time we initially talk to you about selling your home, by the time it's done closing and past closing, it's an average of 160 hours.
Wow.
So if you took a $500,000 home at a 2.5% fee, I think it ended up being like $48 an hour
Okay.
for the services, right? But that's our net. So let's just take the fee. You got to pay the brokerage.
Yeah.
You got to pay Uncle Sam. And a lot of people go, well, it only took 10 days to sell it. Well, right. But we started talking 30 days ago. It
Right.
took you 2 weeks to get the house prepped. It took us another week to get photos and some staging done so that we could get you the top price. Then we had to go under contract. Then we had other offers. We had to vet those offers. We had to vet the buyers, the lenders. Then we went under contract. Then we had to deal with all of the contingencies.
Yep.
Then we got through all of that. We had to deal with lender things. And then we needed to make sure it closed. By the time it's all said and done, really the average transaction on a good transaction is 60 days.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we just forget that. And I think it would be the same with a wholesaler. Even if a wholesaler is getting a flat fee,
Sure.
at the end of the day, there's expenses, there's a cost of doing business. So I think, to be fair to the seller, they see this lump sum, and maybe we don't do a very good job of breaking down what we're really making.
Yeah. Or what we're doing for that money.
Sure. And
Yeah.
then what changes if it goes from it's been on the market for 20 days to it's on the market for 6 months?
Right.
What is your cost? So as an agent, you have just as much holding costs. And I
And
just don't.
incentive to sell it fast. Like I would always say to people, somebody said to me once, if you sell it in the first 5 days, do you cut the commission in half? And I said, no, you should double it. He
Right?
goes, why? And I said, because it means I sold your house quick. And he goes, I said, dude, if we're talking about this in 4 months from now, that's when you say to me, hey, you're clearly not doing something. You're not advising or you're not marketing it properly.
Right.
And then you talk about, hey, I'm going to cut your commission or something. But
Didn't
that's, I think, dude, if we were still in, I think that's where agents have been maybe over the last 10 years. Cause I think 2013 and 12 were like the market was really starting to bounce, at least in like the states that I was in, like starting to bounce back and prices were rising. And, it was tough not to sell something. It was, your days on market weren't that long. It were like 24, 27 days, which is not that bad. But it's not like 2021 when they were like an hour, or 2 hours or something.
Right.
And I think agents got really used to that, and technology maybe made them lazy. Who knows? But I can tell you right now that there are very few buyer agents that I know, forget about that, listing agents too, that actually do a lot of work for their client. And my buddy Andrew Undum, who's out here, Sure Group, out in Baltimore, he's one of those guys that the three of us could get on and have a conversation about this. I mean, he's a dominant player, huge Berkshire. He might be the biggest Berkshire agent in the world.
Wow.
And $250 million like sale. I mean, insane. But he talks about this a lot on stage. Like, you have to do something for your clients. You got to prove to them that the money that they're paying you, regardless of whether a buyer is actually paying you or not, you got to do something for the money. You got to show them. Like, our listing presentation literally has every single line item of everything we're going to do, because then a seller looks at it and goes, oh, okay, value, price. That's pretty good. I got it. You're going to do all that stuff. I'm paying you this. Okay, got it. But I think it's where they don't know what they get, and they're paying this exorbitant amount of money, and they're like, why did I just pay $15,000 to sell my house when, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine today, and I said, dude, there is no value in a real estate agent until they really justify their value. So do not just go get the neighborhood expert or the guy who lives down the street or the guy at the golf club. You got to get somebody that shows you a marketing plan and what they're going to do to actively sell your house. Other than that, find an agent to put on the MLS for a flat fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you want to get into the weeds.
I love this. I love this topic, and I think it's something that we just get into the weeds for a second.
My verified workshop, which we'll talk about another time.
Yeah. No, your verified workshop is amazing, by the way. For those of you watching, you got to go. What's the website?
Realestateverified.com.
Okay, go check this out. I was massively impressed with what Brandon built.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But in the workshop training, I go through some statistics, home buyer survey in 2022. And I'd be more than happy to share all of these with you. But here's what really I think is interesting is 33% of all new home buyers in 2022, 33% thought the process was more difficult than they expected.
Really?
Nearly 1 in 4 buyers were not satisfied with the home buying experience. Right. So back to your point of how hard does somebody work? How educated is an agent, and are they making sure that the buyer is educated, or are they just going through the motions? Right.
Sure.
Here's what's really scary. Almost a third of buyers, 31%, paid over asking price. And the median amount that they overpaid by was $65,000.
That's insane.
So if you think about the experience of you see a price for 500,000 and you end up buying it for 550, just think about the buyer psychology. You already feel like you're overpaying. And then when you move in and you find problems with the house, does that amplify that feeling? Right.
Yeah.
80%
of it does.
80% of buyers made more than one offer, with half of them making 5 or more offers. This was 2022, right?
Yeah.
Let me just get to the other ones that I thought were really critical. 3/4, 72%, have regrets about their home purchase.
That's a lot.
More than half buyers, 55%, bought a fixer-upper, and 25% of them regret it. That's just a few goofy statistics. So I guess where I'm going with this is to add fuel to the fire over the topic about what's going on with the consumer's perception of real estate agents. It's not in our favor at the moment, especially if they've already had a bad experience, right? So how do we combat that? And that's just education, training, the right training.
Yeah.
And being around like-minded people who care about the consumer, right?
Yeah. Who actually, who take pride in their business, their job, their career, their profession. There is also this maybe argument that, hey, what about brand new agents that just don't know what they're doing, and they're trying their best. We were both brand new agents at one point.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I tell people. I go, I get all that. I get people are new, but I was new once. I remember the first open house that I did, like, I busted my ass for that thing. I still had a standard that I set for my business, and I followed up like the cure for every disease in the world those people had. And I followed up. And then, I started getting some traction. So just because you're new doesn't mean that effort has to take a back seat. You can still bust your ass. You just don't know what you don't know. But that's where you're talking about education and training comes in. Look, I've been at Keller Williams like 10 years, something more, maybe more than that. And I've enjoyed every bit of that training. But I think you and I are in the like big minority of people that take advantage of their brokerage's trainings. And I think KW has the best. It's not because I'm at KW. Even if I wasn't at KW, I'll tell you, KW has great training.
Sure.
But how many people actually take advantage, and how many people bridge the gap? Because I've coached at a lot of KW offices, and they don't know half the stuff that KW has. And KW has an amazing amount. And I'm not pitching KW. I'm just saying, they have an amazing amount.
Yep. Totally agree.
But how many people, one, go for it, two, spend the time to do it over time, and three, actually know how to bridge the gap between what they're taught and how to apply it? And that's a big deal.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, it doesn't really matter the brokerage. Is the agent inspired to go out and really take ownership of it and do it well? And back to our market here, our audience, which is how many investors are on this channel who know a lot of agents that they don't care to do business with because they know the agent doesn't bring any value. Right. And so how do we help bridge those gaps? And I think it's a combination of things. I think maybe on the flip side, most investors would be more loyal to the agents that they know have their back and know what they're talking about, understand their numbers. Right.
Sure.
And that's what the CIS class is all about. The CIS class is designed to teach agents how to work better with investors.
We gotta make sure that you pop that in after this. Pop that link in. I popped in verified. Make sure you pop in CIAS because I really want people to know that.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm just gonna tell you right now, Brandon way undercharges for the value of these courses. Like what fucking like astronomically way undercharges. I'm just telling you that right now. Like before Brandon gets like a new idea in his head about how much he really should charge, and before I encourage him to up those prices, you should take advantage of literally how little you have to pay for some of the best most procured and filtered info that you have ever seen. Like it is shocking to me how much you're charging for what you get.
Well, I appreciate that, dude. I mean, you gotta, I think we're just trying to build momentum.
I totally agree. Yeah, dude. And I think it's a great thing to get more people involved because the more that we can train agents, the better the industry becomes. But just know, agents, eventually Brandon's going to realize how much this is really worth, and he's going to crank it up to take advantage now.
Now is the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Now is the time. So yeah, dude, I mean, we could talk about this forever. And I think what we're going to do is twice a month, we're going to do a Friday podcast episode where we're just discussing topics like this. And we'll get like Aaron Amuchastegui wants to join us and a couple of like really top level players to get their opinion and just, feed that information to our group. And then we'll make it a podcast episode too. So I think this is something that's really cool because it's agents talking about stuff that they've done from their opinion. I mean, this is Brandon and I's stuff is not the gospel. It's just our opinion as agents who have done a lot of business and a lot of transactions and hustle and see other agents that don't and see other agents that do. Right. And somebody said to me once, like, why do you like promote and talk about other agents on your Facebook page? And I said, well, I talk about my friends that are doing like really great stuff, even in my own city, because honestly, if you're not going to use me, I don't want you to use some like, hack. I want you to use somebody great. So if you're not going to use me, at least I introduce you to somebody great and you're going to have a fantastic experience with them,
Well, and what I say to that is then why do you promote your favorite lender or your favorite contractor on a deal? It's the same. You need people and resources to help you make money and do it the right way. That's why, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, think about this. Like I don't know when it was. It was whenever I bought my car down in Newport, in December of 2021. I found this car on Auto Trader. I wanted something used. It matched exactly what I wanted. And I was buying it to put in my Turo fleet in LA. And I literally went down to the dealership and I said to the guy, there's nothing I actually need you to tell me. The only thing you're going to do is you're going to get a key. And think about the parallel with a real estate agent. You're going to get a key. You're going to put a temp tag on it. You're going to sit in the passenger seat while I drive you around.
Yep.
Then you're going to come back and you're going to fill out a form online, and that's it.
Right.
Like that's it. Besides the driving of the car, I don't need you. A VA could do that form. A VA could have done that form. A VA could be answering my questions on chat. So I feel like the agent maybe on that route, which is like there's so much data and information online that the only thing the public needs you for in the buyer's sense is to open a door if you add no other value. You're just opening a door and you're writing a templated boilerplate contract. That's it. Which a homeowner could do, a buyer could do. They could take a little class. Hey, a house, take this 2-hour class on how to fill out the California purchase and sale agreement, and you're qualified to buy your own house. No agent needed. That wouldn't be hard to do.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think the question becomes, do you feel that you're going to have to negotiate anything?
Yeah, well, that's another aspect. But how many agents really know how to negotiate?
They don't. But to your point, and I think good teams, good real estate teams like our team, we have showing agents.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily, or they don't have the experience, or they're not quite ready to be the full time, but they're still trained on how to show and demonstrate.
So that's where I was going with that. Is I think the industry is going to go to teams, because teams can hold accountability, they can train, they can keep standards up. I think that's where it's going to go. I'm sure there's going to be single agents out there, but I think really agents that are looking to do a significant amount of business, I think teams are going to become mega. They're going to become like mini brokerages.
Yep.
30, 50 agents, 80 agents on a team, just doing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of transaction classes every day. That'd be really cool. I want to set that team up.
Well, and at what point is the consumer, like if you think about a seller, if they don't really already know an agent, do they interview more than one? And here's the crazy thing is how many buyers interview agents? They don't. It's the first one to answer the phone or the first one that they meet at the open house. And so at what point does the consumer demand a little more professionalism or experience before they decide to commit?
Yeah. Well, maybe this whole thing is going to raise that standard and awareness.
It is, because if the states start requiring that a buyer sign a representation agreement, before I sign that agreement, I'm definitely going to want to know, who am I signing an agreement with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting for sure.
Dude, out in Maryland, I didn't know anybody that didn't get buyer agreements signed. In California, I never met a person except for you that signed buyer agreements. It's weird.
Yeah, it is. It's a different practice. We're a dual agency state.
Right.
So I think that has a little bit to do with it. But I think in the investor space, I don't know how many investors would actually sign with an agent. And I don't know that they would.
Well, it's that value proposition again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Value proposition super high. You're going to sign because you don't want to lose that agent, especially if that agent's like, I only have 2 spots, 2 available. Yeah. So, all right, real quick, let's pivot into the 1031 stuff. Take like 10, 15 minutes, do your thing with that, and then we'll wrap it. I will tell you honestly that I don't understand 1031s enough. I know about them. I just don't know enough to advise fully on them. I can advise a little bit, but I would send someone to a professional in that case.
Yeah, and I think again, there's questions that come to mind there when you even make comments like that. So let's just do a real quick. I know this doesn't make this doesn't have a lot to do with the world of rehab and resale, but there are a lot of individuals that you're going to meet that have properties that they file on their tax return as an income property. And if it's filed, if a property is being used as an income property, then the IRS allows some deferral of any capital gains through a 1031 exchange. So that's really what it is in a nutshell. It's 1031 of the IRS code. And what it basically states is any anybody who sells an investment property that has a gain, as long as they buy another replacement property of equal or greater value, then they can defer 100% of the capital gain. That's really what it means in a nutshell. What the weeds look like are this. The question becomes, do you want to hire a third-party company to help facilitate? We call it an accommodator. Do you want to hire a 1031 exchange company as an example? And I would say that if you're a professional investor and you have multiple properties and you have a really good accountant and it's really important for you to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, then a 1031 exchange company you would probably benefit from, especially if you, for whatever reason, you might fall into that high probability of maybe getting audited. But just so you understand the rule says, as long as you, the investor, don't touch the money, you can still have a valid exchange. So as an example, a title company or an escrow company where they're maybe managing the transaction for you, that money is going into your trust account or into their trust account, and from their trust account into another trust account. Technically, you can have a valid exchange. I know all the 1031 exchange companies are going to get mad for me saying this, but at the end of the day, that's a reality. So as long as the investor's not touching the money, you can still have a valid exchange. And there are title companies and escrow companies who also offer the service, maybe at a better rate than, a typical 1031 exchange company. So just want people to be aware that's how that works. And then there's 4 types of exchanges, believe it or not. The most common is what we call the delayed or the Starker exchange, Ian, and that
I'm going to type that into the comments.
Delayed or Starker exchange is the most common. All I have is you want me to put that in the comments?
No, I'm going to put it in while you're talking.
Yeah, that's the most common. And what that basically means is that the investor has 180 days from closing of the property they're selling to the closing of the property that they're purchasing. And as long as they close within the 180-day window, they have a valid exchange.
Yeah.
The key is that we report our taxes from January 1 to December 31st, right?
Yep.
So starting the month of October, the closer you get to the end of the year, the 180-day window starts to shrink. And so a lot of investors don't realize that.
That's a really good point. Can you explain a little bit more on that?
Right. So because our taxes, and this is a tax situation, taxes are on a calendar year. So if I sold the property in June, I would have 180 days. I have it till November, right, to close on my replacement property, and I would still have a valid exchange. But if I closed on the property and it's November 1st, in order for me to be able to count this in the taxable year, I need to close on that replacement property by December 31st.
Oh,
so the window shrinks. So that's why you hear sometimes in the latter part of the year, investors that are doing exchanges start to panic the closer to the end of the year, right? So you can't roll this over into the next year.
Okay. That's very clear.
So make sure everybody is aware of that. But there are 3 other types of exchanges, and prior to the Starker exchange, so we're going back to the 80s. So prior to that, the only exchange you really could do was called a straight exchange or a simultaneous exchange, which meant the closing of the property you're selling and the closing of the property you were purchasing, they had to close on the same day. That's how it used to be. So when I teach the workshop in 1031, the one person who you've never met that you want to be most thankful for is Mr. Starker, which is why they call it the delayed exchange. Starker was the only guy who sued the IRS and won. And so back in the 70s, he had a ton of land that he was doing sales and exchanges for, but they were delayed sales. And he was the one who set the tone for the 180-day rule that we have now. So just a little brief history for you there.
Got it.
The third is a reverse exchange. So what's cool about a reverse exchange is now an investor can say, hey, I found a property that I really want to buy, but I have this other property I need to sell first. So I want to be able to do an exchange. So the reverse exchange allows the investor to buy the replacement property first, and then it gives them 180 days to close on the property that they're selling.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So what's cool about that is maybe you found a deal of a lifetime and you want to take advantage of that purchase before you sell your other property. So the reverse exchange allows you to do that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I've
And
seen that one before.
Yep. Not commonly used, but again,
No.
if you understand that it exists, it's a great strategy to create some more transactional business for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then the fourth is an improvement exchange. And the improvement exchange says that I can sell a piece of property, I can buy another property, and if I make improvements on it, I can still have a valid exchange. So what would that look like? Well, let's just say I'm selling a property for 400,000, but I'm buying another property for 350. Well, on the surface, because I'm selling a property for 400 and I'm purchasing it for 350, that means I have $50,000 of gap. That means I can't necessarily do a full 100% deferred. But if that property needs $60,000 of improvements, and if I get those improvements completed in the 180-day window, then I can still have a valid exchange. So those are the four types that most people don't even realize even exist. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely dealt with exchanges before. I didn't know there was 4 types though.
Yes. And
You know
most
what's crazy?
people
Dude,
don't.
all the BS that they teach you in real estate classes, like when I was getting my California license, I don't think I learned that. And they teach you about exchange, but they didn't teach me those 4.
Yeah, I think they give you the kind of overview of what a 1031 exchange is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's something that I've learned in my 30 years. So one of the rules is, in order to have a valid exchange, you have to buy like kind property.
Yeah.
So the interpretation 20 plus years ago was that if I sold a duplex, I had to buy another duplex.
Yeah.
But that's really not what it means. What it means is I can sell my duplex and I can buy a 10-unit apartment building. I can sell my duplex and buy 2 single family homes.
Yeah.
I could buy vacant land and still have a valid 1031 exchange. So the reason I'm bringing it up is our audience might be meeting people who've owned property for many years.
Yeah.
Well, if they've owned the property for 20 plus years, that generation thinks if I sell my duplex, I have to buy another duplex. So therefore they don't want to sell.
Yeah.
But if you know that, and you can bring the opportunity and help them understand, they can still sell the duplex and diversify and buy other things. That'll open up the door for better conversations.
So is there a rule? Is that 20 years a thing, or is it just anybody? Like the like kind exchange doesn't have to be duplex for duplex. It just has to be investment property for investment property. It can't be 1031 from an investment property to a primary residence.
So the rule has always been the same. It's the interpretation of the rule.
That's what I mean.
So back in the day, the interpretation was if you sell vacant land, you got to buy vacant land again.
Got it.
And that's not what the rule is. So you just can't already own the lot and then sell a property and improve it.
Got it.
So that's one exclusion. It can't be for your personal residence. That's an exclusion.
Yeah.
And it can't be for non-US territory properties. So those are really the only exclusions when it comes to it, but you can totally diversify. And I share when I teach the class, we met this older gentleman in his 70s that owned an 8-unit apartment building. And not only did he not want to sell it because he didn't want another apartment building, he wanted to leave it behind for his 7 grandkids. And so I remember this conversation vividly because I was genuinely interested in his legacy strategy, right?
Yeah.
I remember my parents went through it, my grandparents went through it. And I remember because of what my experiences were watching my dad and my uncle and my aunt's siblings. The first question I asked him was, what are the chances after you go that the 7 grandkids would agree on what to do with the property?
Yeah. Highly unlikely.
Right. And he laughed and he goes, yeah, I don't know. So my next question was, if I could show you how to sell this, defer 100% of your gain, increase your income because he was retired, and leave 7 individual properties behind for your grandkids, would that interest you? And he was just all about that. So we sold that 8-unit apartment building. He bought 7 single family homes, and the single family homes created 25% more income for him in retirement. And then he doesn't have to worry about them arguing over what he leaves behind. Isn't that kind of cool?
Each one gets a house and they don't have to worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do with it what you want.
So that's a great example of leveraging 1031 as a strategy to help somebody with their legacy and create more transactional business.
Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, everybody should be watching this, man. Everybody should be watching this. It's we might actually we might need to change the time.
Yeah.
It just in the afternoon. Maybe we make it like a little bit more in the evening or earlier in the morning. It's just this is such valuable information, especially for lead gen tactics, like we talked about on Monday with Marina. Like you feel giving somebody information that they didn't know makes you massively valuable, as long as you're factual, and honest.
Yeah.
And think about that guy. That guy did not know that.
Nope.
And had a massive problem. You solved that problem. You think that guy's going to sign a buyer agency with you? 100%. He's buying all 7 properties through you. He's selling that apartment building through you.
Well, think of how many investors are on this channel in the audience that if they watch this and they go, wow, I just talked to somebody a month ago who didn't want to sell their apartment building because they didn't want to buy another one. And I walked away from it because I didn't know these things.
Right. That's what I'm saying, dude. This is massively valuable.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to talk to you later about, we got to figure out another time.
I'm good with 10 or 11 in the morning Eastern.
I was thinking about, let me look at the back end insights and we'll talk about it. But dude, this is great. I think if anybody wants to go deeper into this, we can go deeper into this. Make sure you check out Brandon's stuff. Like go to the Real Estate Verified. I dropped the link in there. It's really impressive stuff to really help you as a listing agent, like be massively valuable to a potential client. And then CIAS, which is behind Brandon, is a course that I think you'll walk out of there and you'll be like, holy shit, I thought I knew a lot until I took this course. Yeah. I mean, the first time I took it, I was like, oh my God, I thought I knew a lot. It's crazy.
If you don't mind, the CIAS, and if you go to realestateverify.com, it's not just for real estate agents. If you're an investor, and you want to learn some strategies or better strategies and tactics and how some of these things work, we can do a self-directed IRA, little version of this as well. But dude, I've been blessed with 30 years of experience, and I've seen a lot. And I think what's important for all of us is that we continue to learn together, and hopefully the audience starts engaging more, and we love that stuff, right?
It shows, man. In those courses, it definitely shows. So,
okay.
All right. This has been a really great. I mean, I learned a lot. I was writing notes. I learned a lot on this one. And I put a bunch of notes inside the chat. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, 1, join our group if you already haven't. Join the FlipTrader Facebook group. And 2, jump into this chat from November 1st, and you'll see some of the notes that Brandon talked about, or look in the show notes. We'll drop them all out in the show notes too. And if you guys want us to talk a little bit more about the thing we started with, let us know. I mean, I have fun doing that. I like to be a little controversial with it because I've been a real estate agent. You've been a real estate agent for quite a long time. You a lot more than me, but I went hot and heavy and did a lot of transactions, and I have an opinion on these things that I really like to talk about.
And I think it's good. And I mean, I know you use the word controversial, and I think it's okay. Like, my biggest analogy that I've been using lately is we all know what the speed limit sign is.
Yeah.
We know the law says this is the speed limit. So when you're driving down the road or watching, does everybody, like, our intention is to not go kill people and do it. It's the same with the contract. And I've had this argument with attorneys. They don't want a real estate agent to be an attorney. I don't want to be an attorney.
No.
So if you don't, then don't give me a contract. Right. And not only don't give me a contract, but don't give me a contract with holes that I have to fill in it. So
agreed.
Stop telling me I don't need to be an attorney. That's not what it is. To me, a contract, Ian, is an instrument that we use to negotiate with buyer and sellers so that at the end they don't regret anything. That's what it is. So
it's setting expectations, and that's it.
But know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the most important thing. So if we can bring that to the table for everybody and say, hey,
there's a lot, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
All right,
All
dude.
right.
Thank you once again. Massively appreciative to you and your time, your expertise, the energy, the information. And FlipTrader Group, we will catch you on the training tomorrow, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And this week, something new is the FlipTrader Female Investor Seminar, which we're introducing on Friday. The Female Investor Group met today, and they're starting to build their network and this little mastermind together. It's free, by the way.
Yeah,
and
I'm trying to get Tammy on that.
Yeah, you should. And we're going to be doing a free female investor seminar on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, all about organizing your business, learning how to flip, learning how to start finding properties. Like, this is really for beginners. However, experienced people can learn from the level of detail and the structure that we put together. So, and Ellie and Jamira, our group experts, they're going to be teaching that. They're out of West Hollywood office.
Yeah, we appreciate you putting that stuff together, Ian. That's
of course,
awesome,
man.
Yeah, I love it.
This is a powerhouse. We are every single day we are inching closer to becoming the leading authority in the real estate investor training and education space, and that will happen fast.
Love it.
Yep. All right, people. We'll catch you later.